What is up, everyone? Welcome to Optimus Fantasy. The NFL draft is approaching, folks, and Dynasty League rookie drafts aren't far behind. Today, we're going to get a feel for the values of these NFL prospects so you can be ready for your Dynasty rookie drafts before the rest of your league mates. Hello, fantasy football friends. I am Nate Polvogt, joined by my co-host Mike Vadala and special guest. You've seen him before, Mr. Cam White, our rookie guru. Gentlemen, it is great to be here today. The NFL draft, we're just a couple weeks away. We're now into April, so time is limited to start getting ready for these rookie drafts. They're going to start hitting for a lot of leagues as we get into May. Cam, as we approach these drafts, who are players that you're heavily targeting?
Yeah, I'm trying to grab some of these guys that are going a little bit later. I feel like everybody's pretty tight on their consensus. If you check out my rookie rankings, I've got a few guys in my top 15 that some other folks do not have. Skylar Bell's starting to creep up there. I still really like Emmett Johnson. I think the tape is fantastic. Max Claire's looking good too. But then after you get outside that top 15, we're really waiting to see what these landing spots are going to be because I think there's a lot of talent in this draft. It's got a lot of second round rookie pick talent. There's a lot of depth in that area. So if you have a second or a third, you're probably going to end up with some nice picks that you're happy about. But we got to wait and see what happens after the NFL draft, see where these landing spots end up, how teams are valuing guys, and then what kind of roles they're going to fit into.
Yeah, and that's why we're doing these mock drafts, right? Now, Mike, as we're coming into some of these drafts, we're doing these mock drafts. You and I have been doing them every week for the last couple of months. Who are players you're kind of apprehensive about? Like, who are a couple guys that you just have a lot of questions about? You're not sure. You're trying to figure it out right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of these quarterbacks are tough to judge this year because, coming in, I've been a little bit more vocal about being lower on Ty Simpson and Garrett Nussmeier. But at the same time, like the more I think about it, every year kind of you end up with these quarterbacks where just whether or not they deserve to kind of find a role, there's all these NFL teams that are kind of forcing it. They're kind of trying to find that quarterback and they're maybe more willing to take a shot because of where that franchise is. And so I'm kind of wondering, am I overlooking a team need where some of these players could actually find success fantasy-wise, whether or not I like how their college game looked?
Right. Like in Cam, and I think this is something you and I have talked about, with some of these quarterbacks, we're kind of hoping that they stumble into a starting position, or a guy like Ty Simpson, we're now hearing could be a target for the Jets. So he might sit behind Geno Smith for a season because apparently Aaron Glenn thinks Geno Smith's there to save the day. When you're looking at these quarterbacks, is that something that you're factoring in when you're thinking about drafting one of them?
You should always target the quarterbacks that are going to sit for a year. They just have a better track record of coming in and being productive later in their careers. They don't get tossed into the fire and have to learn on the fly, potentially get injured because they're not up to speed with the game yet or really wreck their confidence. Anybody that's played sports knows that confidence is 50% of the game. The other 50 is your skills and your coaching. But if you don't have the confidence to get out there and be sure in what you're doing and your decision making, then you can really ruin some of these young guys' careers. So I actually really like when they get to sit for a year. Obviously, we'll have some of these guys that come in and, Caleb Williams can just start right away. I don't think we necessarily have a Caleb Williams talent in this draft. I love Mendoza. Would still prefer he sits for some time rather than just tossing him right into the Raiders' fire.
Well, and I think we kind of got the message from Clint Kubiak. That's exactly what they're looking to do with Mendoza. He said it, and then 2 days later, they signed Kirk Cousins. I think it's somewhere around 50 million, 20 million guaranteed, I think, over the length of the contract. So, I mean, we realistically probably are going to see Mendoza sit, even if it's just for the first 5 or 6 games, to get him warmed up, get him ready, let him sit behind a veteran, have that voice there. So that's kind of what we're trying to suss out with these drafts, guys. Before we do get into the draft, I want to remind you guys our tools are live on OptimusFantasy.com, but I'm not going to sit here and talk about it. I'm going to let Smokey Hell Nelson tell you about them.
Hi, I'm Smokey Hell Nelson. Have you heard about our Lord and Savior, Optimus Fantasy? Lord over your leagues with the Savior Fantasy tools. OptimusFantasy.com. Don't believe me? Check this. Mo leagues, no problem. Optimus has you covered with league management tools for any league size on any provider with built-in trade analyzers. A little blasphemous, maybe, but I mean, hell's my middle name. And I'll be damned if these aren't the best tools on the market, so get your ass to OptimusFantasy.com.
I love that promo, man. You guys are going to be seeing a lot more of Smokey as we get deeper into the off season. We're going to be getting him on shows. You can get some written content out from him. Sorry. So look for that, guys. Also, if you want to stay up with the news, and it is draft season, so it is very important, make sure you check us out on Blue Sky at news.optimusfantasy.com. Carly is getting to the news as it happens and getting it posted for you faster than most of the NFL voices you listen to on other platforms. So make sure you check that out on Blue Sky at news.optimusfantasy.com. All right, guys, I think it's time to get into this draft here. Just to remind everyone, whoa, there we go. Boom, here we go. Now we've got everybody. Just to remind everyone, guys, we're doing 4 rounds of a 1 QB standard non-PPR rookie draft. We do have 2 minutes on the clock, and I want to go ahead and get this started. Now, if you are watching us live and you've got questions after this draft, please make sure you hit us up on our Discord channel. The 3 of us will be around to answer those questions. We're around all the time. We've got Lou and Carly there as well. Man, there we go. We got the first pick off the board here.
Can we take that back, actually? I meant to click Jeremiyah Love. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, Jamie.
Guys. No,
sorry, Jamie.
No, he understands. Believe me, guys. Hold on a second here. We're going to do that. We're going to give you, of course, Jeremiyah Love. All right, Jamie, you're back on the clock, buddy. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so Jeremiyah Love, he's pretty much been the consensus, right? Like, this is the guy that we're hearing is going off the board, and that's even in super flex. Cam, how high are your expectations for him?
Yeah, I think he's going to be similar level talent to Ashton Genty. I think we're going to be able to plug him into our lineups in week 1 and watch him really produce for us. The tape at Notre Dame was fantastic. He's extremely elusive, easily the best running back in this class. I think in year 1, we're probably going to see a top 24 season out of him. I hesitate to put him in the top 12. There's a lot of good running back talent, and not knowing his draft spot, not knowing the offensive line he's going to run behind, I see people are starting to mock him to the Tennessee Titans, and I think Tony Pollard is a good running back there, and there's a chance that if he ends up in one of these situations with another vet, Pollard's had like 5 straight years of 1,000 yards rushing. I don't think they just give him the lion's share right away. So let's see where he ends up, and there's a good chance that he's going to start sneaking in and redraft the back end of the first round, start of the second round, but locked and loaded, 1 QB, 101 overall, like can't really miss.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And then we got Carnell Tate out of Ohio State going 2nd overall. Mike, there's been a lot of talk of, is it Carnell Tate? Is it Jordan Tyson? Is it Mekhi Lemon out of USC? Do you prefer Tate, or we have Lemon go here at 103 as well?
Yeah, I like Tate over Lemon here. I just, watching the tape, I do think Tate is just a step above. He is, just a great pass catcher, great route runner. He's got a nice big frame. He finds great separation, and yeah, I just think he's a bit more of a complete player. But Mekhi Lemon has some really exciting yards after the catch ability, and he's really got very impressive contact balance. He kind of runs around like Jamar Chase out there a little bit, where like he's just really tough to bring down, and he kind of just stays low to the ground and is able to just stay up through contact really well. Up here at number 4, I'm going to go Fernando Mendoza. That might be a little bit aggressive for a 1 QB league, but I just really love the rushing upside Mendoza provides. And this is also going to entirely depend on your team build in a rookie mock draft. So if I didn't need a quarterback, there's no way I'm going Mendoza there. But in terms of just what type of value I think Mendoza can bring to a fantasy team, I think that the 104 is justified even in a 1 QB draft.
Well, and I'll say this about that pick specifically. If you're rolling with a quarterback like you've got Josh Allen, you've got Jalen Hurts, you've got Lamar Jackson, and you're loaded at other positions, this makes sense to me, because now all of a sudden you've got this capital, and either you can move them later on, You can move one of those other quarterbacks later on, but you can sit on him for a season if he does sit behind Cousins. All right, we've got Jordan Tyson coming off the board at 105, Casey Concepcion coming off the board at 106. Cam, you've written profiles on a lot of these early guys, these early picks. Who impressed you the most when you were writing out these profiles? Who was a guy out of these ones who you thought, you know what, maybe this guy can't miss?
Yeah, I think it's Casey Concepcion. He's great at beating man coverage. He gets off against press, settles into zones and finds the open space, playing against zone coverage. And then he's really violent with the ball in his hands and turns into a yak monster, doesn't leave his feet unnecessarily. I think his hands are pretty good. He makes some really great catches in contested situations. Would like to see his hand placement improve a little bit, but I don't think that's a big enough flaw right now to hold him back. And then we're also probably going to see him go a little bit later in the first round. So odds are he goes to a better team in a better situation. I always like that in a guy's profile. If you're taking Carnell Tate and he ends up, we chatted about this earlier, if he ends up on the Browns, now he's not maybe as enticing as Concepcion if he ends up, and I'm just spitballing, I don't have this in my mock drafts, but say he ends up with the Buffalo Bills and now he's potentially like the 1A or 1B to DJ Moore. I really like that.
Yeah, and that's, again, that's why we're mocking these out, but I like that. And I think that's more of a situation we're going to see with him, Cam. Jadarian Price going at 107, another Notre Dame running back. Obviously, we're valuing Love really high. This is a pretty high value for Price. I don't think I've seen him go this early in a draft yet. Mike, do you think that it's worth him being the second running back off the board over Mike Washington even?
I just saw in a draft today, Jadarian Price go 101. So I think this is a great value here for Deuce.
Who would do such a thing? Who would do
Who
that?
would dare?
No, you know what? I don't really love Price as the RB2 off the board there. I've got a couple other guys that I prefer, but I don't want to get sniped in this draft, so I'm not going to say who they are just yet. But yeah, I think Price has a nice chance to get into a good like pass catching role or into like a shared backfield role, but I'm not convinced that he has the workhorse role like in him right now, but maybe that's also something he could work up into. I just think there's more like pro ready players that could actually like lead a backfield and carry like the bulk share of touches for a team more likely than Price would.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, Mike Washington is my RB2 flat out, period. If Jeremiyah Love isn't on the board, which most leagues he's not going to be on the board for me, that's where I'm going if I need a running back. Kenyon Sadiq off the board at 108. Cam, is there any concern here with him that, I mean, possibly because he's not a great blocking tight end, he might not see as much time in his rookie season? This is a guy that's going to have to develop that skill to be able to see more time.
Yeah, so I love Sadiq's profile. Incredible athlete, but I think he's still figuring out how to use some of those skills. As far as his blocking goes, he's a much better blocker than Eli Stowers. Stowers really is just a glorified wide receiver when we're talking about his blocking abilities. And then Max Clare, who's my tight end 3 in this class, also not a fantastic blocker. They had Will Kasmerick there instead to pick up those duties. But Sadiq was a strong blocker when we're looking at the top of this class. Now, there's some pass-catching tight ends that are better blockers, a little bit deeper, but none of them have the athletic profile that Sadiq does. None of them have the body control that Sadiq does. So I really like Kenyon Sadiq. I think that, yeah, probably this like 106 to like 112 range is a good spot to take him. But he couldn't beat out Terrence Ferguson last year at Oregon, and then he didn't really dominate this past year. He had a good season, but when you look at Stowers' stats, when you look at Tanner Koziel's stats, like those are fantastic pass catchers that were able to be the engines in their offense on the passing side of the ball. So, you know, I like Sadiq. I'm probably going to be a little bit lower than most, though.
Okay, see, that's where I'm at too. I'm higher on Stowers than I am on Sadiq. And the reason being is that I've heard a lot of chatter, and I live in Denver, so I hear more of this stuff. I listen to sports radio a lot. There's a lot of talk that Stowers is a guy that Sean Payton might be targeting in putting him in the role that they wanted Evan Ingram to succeed in last year, but he just simply didn't. I would love that. And he, to me, then becomes the most valuable tight end in this class. Mike, is that crazy?
No, I think that Stowers is certainly, you could have him 1 or 2. And I think if you want to bet on the athleticism, and then you're going to go with Sadiq. And if you want to just bet on maybe who has the best chance to kind of settle into like a fantasy advantageous role, Eli Stowers is got a really great chance. Like he's a guy that's going to get drafted by a team who specifically wants to use him as kind of a pass catcher. So, yeah, I think you could go 1 or 2 with either of these guys. Sadiq is really exciting, maybe like a more of a home run swing. And Stowers feels a little bit more reliable. Cam and I are doing a dynasty startup right now, where we have rookies included, and the tight ends are kind of super buffed up. And Stowers, I think, went in like the 5th round in that draft. And shout out JL Triple Sticks, who's in this draft, who's also drafted with us over there. So got to give our guy a shout out here.
All right, Mike Washington finally off of the board, guys. He comes off at 112 to end out the first round. Cam, you and I, we've been very vocal about our love for Mike Washington, and for good reason. You call him Derrick Henry with hands. I do not disagree whatsoever. I think it's a really good assessment, and not that, dude, predicting someone to have the Derrick Henry career arc is insane, right? You can't predict that for any single player. But the point being is that the skill level is there, and I don't disagree. Should he be falling to the end of the first round in dynasty rookie drafts in any situation, any scenario?
Yeah, I think he should be, actually. I think this wide receiver class is really talented. There's just a glut of wide receiver talent for maybe 20, 25 guys. Obviously, the top 10 guys are setting themselves apart. But if you check out my rookie rankings, I have Mike Washington, Emmett Johnson. They're going a little bit later. I think I have them at 12 or 13 right now, in there with Jadarian Price. But I really love the wide receiver talent. As far as Mike Washington's concerned, I wish he used his body. He's gigantic. This guy is a mountain of a man. And I really wish that some of that physicality came through more on tape. There are times where he's running guys over and throwing guys off of him. But you don't necessarily see him lowering his shoulder all the time and using his 230 plus pound frame to power through guys. But that 4.3 speed is incredible. That's something that you just can't teach speed, and he's going to be able to use that combined with his size to run through guys at the next level. I think he gets a lot better in that aspect. But I do have him behind these wide receivers.
Okay. And that's fair. That is absolutely fair. He's coming out of Arkansas. He was in an offense with Taylon Green, who's a guy I'm going to be surprised to see go in any rookie drafts by the time we get to actual post NFL draft. All right. We're picking up steam here. We have Denzel Boston going at 201, Jonah Coleman out of Washington going 202, then Nick Singleton from Penn State at 203, Emmett Johnson from Nebraska at 204. I'm surprised, Cam, to see Emmett Johnson falling behind Jonah Coleman and Nick Singleton. Does this surprise you as well?
Yeah, it really does surprise me. I think people are just loving the 40 times that they see out there and did not love Emmett Johnson's 40 time.
Sure.
But in the startup draft that Mike was referencing, I got sniped on Emmett Johnson by 1 pick. And I ended up trading a future first and second for him. I really believe in the talent. You turn on the tape and he's just making guys miss in the backfield, setting up defenders at the next level and evading the linebackers. Doesn't necessarily need to be fast. He's a really smart runner. You'll see him start manipulating the second level of the defense when he's coming through the hole, setting himself up for a jump cut back to the other side of the field. Has fantastic hands. Pulled in, I think, something like 46 balls in this past year. Maybe that's high by a couple, but yeah, for me, he's my RB2, followed immediately after by Mike Washington and then Jadarian Price.
Yeah, I really do think here in this, I like this comment. Is Price the new Roschon Johnson? Because look, if you go back to that draft, obviously Bijan was the man, but a lot of us were really high on Roschon, and for good reason. He showed a lot of talent at Texas. It was just he was sitting behind basically what we're seeing now is damn near a generational running back if things pan out the way that they're looking in Atlanta. We thought he was going to be more than he ended up actually turning into. Roschon Johnson is a change of pace at best back. Any concern about that with Jadarian Price, Mike?
I think that's definitely a valid comparison. I've had the same thought totally pass through my head a few times. I think that they're slightly different players, but I just, it's Notre Dame's one of those teams that kind of gets overvalued sometimes. And I think that might be happening with Price just a little bit. He's a talented back. Don't get me wrong. I just like Cam said too, I had Emmett Johnson over him. I think I have Singleton over him. I think I've got Price in my top 5 or 6 backs, but he certainly is not my number 2.
Sure. Cam, how about you?
I really like Jadarian Price. I think he could have gone to a lot of different college programs and been the starting running back there. Would have no problem taking him ahead of Mike Washington if you like Jadarian Price. I think he's, again, another guy that is really great with his vision. Doesn't have a ton of elusivity, doesn't have a ton of power, but runs with good pad level. We didn't get to see him as a pass catcher really because Love is just much better at that aspect. But what did happen is Notre Dame didn't change their game plan when they had him out there. So, did I just get sniped on Skylar Bell? Oh, I did.
You did.
Cam
well done,
loves
Brock.
Skylar Bell, everyone. Cam loves
well done,
Skylar
Brock.
Bell.
I do love Skylar Bell.
Yeah, no, you have definitely made that not secret whatsoever. All right, we got Chris Brazel coming off the board out of Tennessee, 205, followed by Malachi Fields, Katron Allen, Chris Bell, Ty Simpson, Jeremy Bernard at the 210. And now here's what I want to talk about. Ted Hurst out of Georgia State. Going in the second round, guys. Cam, we saw him in Mobile. He was good. He was really raw. It's going to be a couple of years on him. Are you scared off of taking him that early? I mean, in my head, he's a guy who should be going in the late 3rd, early 4th round because this is really a risk with Ted Hurst.
Yeah, Ted Hurst is one of the guys I watched the most when we were doing our Senior Bowl prep. He was one of the first wide receivers that declared for the Senior Bowl, was invited to the Senior Bowl. So I had a lot of time to scout Ted Hurst. He does have some struggles against physicality, so press is going to be a concern. Some of this man that he's going to see at the next level will be a concern. But he didn't have a great quarterback over at Georgia State and put up fantastic numbers. Every single game that I watched, they had graphics ready to go for Ted Hurst, essentially just hyping him up and letting you know that this is their best player. And the defenses gave him the most attention, and he was still out there winning. I think that at the next level, when he gets the NFL caliber diet and training and workout programs, that he's going to add some weight and will probably not be concerned about these, his limitations as a wide receiver because he mostly wins by being athletically gifted. And he is a good route runner. I don't think he's one of the best in this class, but he is a good route runner. So I think, he ends up in a pro program, puts on some weight, gets a little bit better. I think he's one of the better upside swings in this class. There's still some guys I like ahead of Ted Hurst quite a bit. But if you wanted to take him at the end of the second round, I mean, go get your guy. I think you really want to be comfortable in taking guys that you're interested in rooting for. And if Hurst is that guy, I don't have a problem at this point.
Look, as someone who drafted Laviska Shenault in the second round of rookie drafts the year he came out, I cannot argue with that. My concern with Hurst is Laviska Shenault, really is what it comes down to. I feel like he's going to have to be used in so many weird ways, and they're going to have to scheme for him, depending on where he lands, of course. And we see when players end up in those kind of offenses, is that kind of player, they just don't produce in fantasy. They're fun to watch, but they become really hard to want to acquire, want to keep on your roster. All right, after Ted Hurst, Sky Bell obviously came off the board. Cam gets sniped here, but you recovered with Max Clare, which I love. Then we have Michael Trigg out of Baylor, who's a guy I really like, going at 3-2. Then we have got Jacoby Lane going at 3-3. Cam, he's again someone we saw in Mobile. Do you think maybe we're a little too low on Jacoby Lane if he's going in the 3rd round? Because what we saw in Mobile, we liked.
Yeah, I think he was one of the best wide receivers in Mobile, and defensive backs played him that way. There was a little bit extra fire on the field in the one-on-one drills and in practice when someone had to guard Lane. I really like his skill set. I think at the NFL level, he's probably going to be a deep threat, very similar to like a Christian Watson sort of player. We're using him in the intermediate and deep levels of the field. He's got massive hands. I think he checked in at like 10.5-inch hands. Very, very large player at 6'4". When we saw him without his pads at media day, he is a little slight of frame, so he's going to have to put on some weight at the next level, similar to Ted Hurst. But I think he's going to be a guy that probably goes day 2 of the NFL draft. Maybe a little bit better for the NFL than he is in fantasy in the beginning, just because the average depth of his targets are probably going to come much further down the field. But I like Jacoby Lane. I think if you want to bet on some of these like size speed freaks, what did he run? Like a 4.48 at the combine?
It was
I think this is a guy you want to bet on.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to argue with you at all. Denzel Claiborne off the board now at 3.4. Then we've got Zachariah Branch at 3.5. We've got Aaron Williams at 3.6. Garrett Nussmeier at 3.7. Now, Garrett Nussmeier in the 3rd round in a 1 QB league, I feel like this is a steal because by the time we're in the 3rd round, these are taxi guys in my mind for the most part. I don't mind taxing Nussmeier to see what happens. Maybe he does end up somewhere where he starts. Maybe he ends up somewhere where he can sit for a little bit. Mike, Nussmeier 3rd round, does that feel like good value to you?
Totally. And I mean, like, going back to what we were talking about your team build in a rookie draft. You could even, like, if you're in a position where you're desperate at quarterback, but you're good everywhere else, you could go into a rookie draft and just say, I'm just going to take all of the quarterbacks. Like, I've done that before. And you go in and, like, if you go back to these years, like the Bryce Young and CJ Stroud year, these guys were going in like the back end of the 2nd or even to the 3rd round. I mean, these are good quarterbacks. The 101, like the 101 and 102 draft pick in the NFL draft were being picked in the late 2nd or mid 2nd round. I mean, these were just great values. And I was able to get both of those guys. And then I also ended up, making a trade for Lamar Jackson. So then I was able to flip Young and Stroud for more draft capital and players. Sure. I mean, it's just because these players are going to get drafted by teams that want to at least try them out. You have a great chance to increase your value when you pick them in the 3rd round. So I love that pick. Absolutely.
Yep. All right. We have Deion Burks off the board at 3.08 after that. And then I got autoed to Le'Veon Moss, which is fine. He was in my queue anyway, so it's not a big deal. I'll take it. Justin Joly at tight end. He is now the 5th tight end off the board here. Cam, we loved Justin Joly in Mobile, and he looked good at the combine as well.
Yeah, he's another one of the guys that is extremely physical with the ball in his hands, turns into a yak guy quickly. Another guy with big hands. I think he came in with 10.5-inch hands, somewhere in between there. When they measured them at the Senior Bowl, he's an easy underneath target. We actually saw them running some of these like jet sweeps to the tight end with Jolie in the backfield. So that was interesting to see what they do at the next level. But he's one of my favorite guys to target. If you miss out on Stowers, if you miss out on Sadiq, this tight end class, in my opinion, is pretty deep. So you can get Jolie, you can get Koziel, you can get John Michael Gillenborg. There's a lot of tight end talent. So if you want to wait on tight end, there's some guys that I feel comfortable waiting on. And one of those is Jolie.
Well, and I think, too, with Jolie, if you look at the spread of his college career, 2 years at UConn, 2 years at NC State, his last 3 seasons, he had 40 or more catches in his last 3 seasons. And he had 49 in one season. He had 56 in one, 43 in another. And you look at that, and that translates to, like, look, if I have a guy like Jolie as a rookie who gets 40 to 50 catches as a flex play, that's points, especially in PPR. Now, this isn't PPR, of course, and he's more of a stash in the 3rd round here. But yeah, I really like this draft pick. After Jolie, we've got Eric McAllister, then Drew Aller coming off the board at 3.12. More questions about him than the other 3 quarterbacks, of course. And then you got your boy, Cam, and I love to see it, Jade Knott off the board at 4.1. Let's talk about that one, because with Ott, we didn't see a lot his senior season. He never really fully got involved in that offense. He was hurt. Do you think this is a huge discount on a guy who could be a huge impact maker?
Yeah, I do. He's a PPR monster. I think he's a 3 down back.
Yep.
Um, in his career, has I think 3 seasons of more than 40 passes that he's caught. Last year was a weird year for him. He suffered an injury and then transferred to Oklahoma. Never really got up to speed. But when we saw him at the Senior Bowl, he had some of the best footwork of all the running backs.
Yeah.
He was easily finding the hole against a really tough defensive front. If you look at this Senior Bowl class and then you look at who's going in the first round of the NFL draft and second round, the defensive line was scary that he had to run against. And I thought he looked really good. Then we see him in the actual game. He rips off a good run, gets a touchdown. I think Ott is going to find himself in a good situation. I'm happy that he's falling to the 4th round because I have him in my top 15 for 1 QB rankings. Feeling really comfortable taking him here. I also looked at Jeremiyah Taylor. I love his contact balance.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that he can just stalemate a hit from a linebacker or a safety coming into the hole and then rip off that run for another 30 yards. Also fantastic hands. So there's good running back depth in this class. I think as soon as you get into the 3rd and 4th round, you're probably just going to want to start taking guys because any running back on a 52-man roster is going to be valuable in your fantasy seasons. And I want to take them over some of these wide receivers just because there's a lot of good wide receiver talent in the league. And there's only so many starting spots and only so many targets to go around. So at least if you're taking a running back, there's a chance that they end up getting a start. Maybe they get 15 carries in a week, and that's the week you can start them and play that window.
Right. Yeah, Jeremiyah Taylor, that's another one I like too, man. Getting him in the 4th round, like he was a guy that we were impressed with the film before we saw him in Mobile. I wouldn't say we were unimpressed with him in Mobile. I was happy with what he did. I think that he has a future. Sam Roche was a tight end that we really liked out of Stanford. He fell to the 4th round here at 403. Then we've got Eli Heidenreich, running back, going at 4-4. Bryce Lance, who is someone that during the media portion Senior Bowl week, Cole Payton, the quarterback at North Dakota State, said Bryce Lance is a guy that you all need to be paying attention to. He's very talented. He was disappointed he wasn't invited to Mobile. So we see him go off the board here at 4-5. Tanner Koziel, another guy we saw in Mobile, can't block, but what can you do? I think he's a very talented. He needs to put on some weight. Let's put it that way. He's a small frame, tall, skinny guy who could put on some weight. Then we've got, honest to God, I'm going to butcher this last name. Trayanum. We'll learn it. And then we've got Jam Miller off the board at 408. I'm going on the clock here. Jam Miller was a guy we were supposed to see in Mobile. We didn't. He's an Alabama running back falling in the 4th round. I think he's probably should be on the top of your list of dart throws right now, Mike. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I liked Jam Miller. I remember when we went and we were all kind of scouting him, and I felt like at that time I was a little like higher than more people on Jam Miller back before the Senior Bowl. And then I think I kind of cooled off on Jam Miller because I just wasn't hearing a lot of the same thing from the other people. And now I'm starting to hear a little bit of buzz on him again. I think he had a pretty decent combine as well, which should help his value. And then also just that Alabama pedigree. Sure. It's not Nick Saban, but hey, I mean, you're going to get just noticed if you play for Alabama still, until they stink for many years or something, and then they won't. But still, you're just going to have that memory of the program in your mind when you're looking at these players. You can't really help but do that. And I think that's just as true for NFL GMs and scouts. So I think that he gets a little bit of just kind of, I guess, privilege might be the way to say it. And just that he's at a school where you're on TV all the time and people get to watch you. But I think he displayed really good. What's the word? Like he was very smart about not trying to make more out of a play than was there. He was really happy just taking the 3 yards that was in front of him. And we kind of knocked him for that, but I do think that NFL coaches really value that as a good thing. So yeah, I think he could find a good role.
I mean, yeah, to be fair, there are a lot of running backs in the NFL. They're not exciting to watch. I mean, dude, Tyler Algier, there's nothing fun about watching him run the ball, but he gets those chunks of yards, and that's kind of to me is what Jam Miller is. Then we've got Kevin Coleman. I took him here. I really liked that kid out of Missouri. I think he's going to fit in as a slot guy. I think he's a really sneaky 4th round pick. Then we've got Brennan Thompson going at 4'10. Taylon Green. I was wrong. Taylon Green goes off the board at 4'11, the quarterback out of Arkansas, the freak athlete out of Arkansas. And then we round out the draft with Seth McGowan out of Kentucky going at 4'12. Seth McGowan is somebody, Cam, that you and I really liked. We've liked his film. We've liked seeing him in person. There are character concerns. We didn't really see any of that in Mobile, but we did see he was a guy that was having a hard time running routes and catching passes. I think, though, he's still worth a steal at the end of the 4th round. Is he someone that maybe if you have like a 4'10, 4'11, 4'12 pick, you would take a shot on?
Yeah, he's in my, I'm just looking at my rankings right now. I have him in like the tier 7, tier 8 range of this class, which is kind of a range where draft spot dependent. Like you're going to take some stabs on some of these guys. The 4th round is a fine place to take him. I think one of the things that I really liked with Seth McGowan is that he runs with a lot of tenacity, looks for contact and tries to deal it. You'll see some of like the defensive backs on film shying away from that contact because he is a really physical runner. When we were out there watching him in Mobile, C.H. Herms, he was mentioning to us that he's like very animated when he runs. And you see it on the tape. He like really lifts his legs, generates a lot of power. He's a shifty running back. His hands looked good on film. Didn't see it at the Senior Bowl. Also, he struggled with blocking when we were watching the one-on-one drills against linebackers where he has to protect the mock quarterback. But I think there's room for him to learn. I think the moment was a little big at the Senior Bowl. And if we just put him into a backfield where he's got a chance to maybe be RB2 or RB3. There's an injury. There's a chance you're using him this next year, but I think he's more than likely a taxi guy for me.
Yeah, and yeah, that's how I'm looking at all these 4th round guys, though. Like, I mean, realistically, do I think that Kevin Coleman is going to be a guy that I'm going to start in any Dynasty League next season? Probably not. But I have room for him on my taxi squad because I'm getting rid of some of the dead weight. There's plenty. Dude, we all have plenty of that. All right, guys, that's going to round out the draft. I want to take a look at a couple of our teams here. First, Cam, I really like what you did here. Jeremiyah Love, Denzel Boston, Max Clare, Jaden Ott. I think this is a really solid squad. Did you come in thinking you were going to target any of these guys, or is this just how it fell? I mean, obviously, Jeremiyah Love was the 101. We know that.
Well, I mean, could be Jadarian Price, you know. But yeah, so I love Denzel Boston. I think that being 6'3", 6'4", he runs really, really fluid routes. He's going to be a guy that wins with his feet. He can handle some physicality, beats man, beats zone. You can put him on the outside and run him as X. I think that's probably where he's going to get used at the NFL level. My comp for him is more of like a T. Higgins sort of player. And then Max Clare, honestly, he's in my top 15 right now. Not a great blocker, but looks really good out there running routes. He's one of the better route runners at tight end. Has some problems with his hands, catches with his body, leaves his feet unnecessarily. But you're really drafting him for his fantasy purposes. And if he's out there catching 6 balls and getting 40 yards, like that's a really good week from a rookie. And as we move into teams using more 2 tight end sets, I want to target as many of the tight ends in this class as I can, just to see what happens if teams are going to start running out these big formations and they're taking advantage of the smaller defenses that have been built to try to tackle all of these like slot wide receivers that have been put together over the last 5 years. We're going to see a change. And I think we want Claire. I think we want Trigg, Jolly, Roush, Koziel. All of these tight ends I kind of have bunched together at some point in this draft. But love what came out of this. I did want to call out that JL Triple Sticks took Taylon Green and made a note in the chat that he's not drafting him as a quarterback, which I think we've heard that in the combine. They were talking to him about potentially converting, and he told everybody on air, like, no, I'm a quarterback. But he's the massive man that's running a blazing fast speed. We just need to figure out if he can fix his footwork. fix some of his mechanics. And if he can't, there's always a chance that he transitions into another role. We've seen that before with quarterbacks. Usually doesn't end up translating at the next level. But when you're 6'6", 6'7", and you're running in the 4.4s, like, yeah, it's a great dart throw at the end of the 4th round.
Yeah, no, I look, I don't disagree. I think he's a fantastic dart throw. This is a more realistic Anthony Richardson, guys. Like, who might get a shot somewhere eventually, maybe in a hybrid position, a slash type role, if you're old enough to remember that, or I just really super aged myself a ton. All right, Mike, let's look at your team here. 3 running backs, and you go Fernando Mendoza at 104. Were you expecting to go all running back here? Or is this just how it fell for you, man?
Just kind of how it fell for me. I think Damon Claiborne is a little underrated right now. I would have definitely had him in the 2nd round. I think in general, this being a non-PPR, I would have expected to see the 1st round go more running back heavy. But I felt like Emmett Johnson fell to me, and then I felt the same way about Damon Claiborne. And then Eli Heidenreich, I just kind of wanted to talk about because he's a pretty cool and interesting player. He kind of plays this like combo role of he's a little bit receiver, a little bit running back. He had 51 catches for 900 plus yards in this past college season. And then he also added like 70 rushes for 400 or something like that. It added up to just over 1,000 yards. So just kind of a fun, exciting. That's what I love to do with my 4th round pick in a rookie draft. At this point, it's pretty rare you're going to hit on a guy, so you might as well have some fun with it. So I wanted to have a little fun and talk about Eli Heidenreich.
I love it, man. That's awesome. I mean, we're just trying to get a feel for stuff here. Obviously, things are going to change a ton. This is not what I expected my draft to look like today, but here we are, and I'm totally okay with it. I think my biggest surprise was Ty Simpson. But lately, like hearing that, okay, maybe he has a chance to sit for a season, and he's a guy I think that could succeed sitting for a season, the way I think maybe Josh Rosen could have succeeded if he had been thrown into the fire, maybe if he'd had a couple seasons to sit. But I feel like that's where we're at with Ty Simpson. He gets into that situation, even as a 2nd round quarterback in a 1 QB league. I'm going to tax him for a couple years, and we'll see what happens. This is why I trade a lot of my draft picks, guys. It's just what I do. I'm a firm believer in known value versus speculative value. And maybe sometimes I play that a little bit too hard in Dynasty. No risk, no reward. Am I right?
Definitely.
All right, guys. Well, I want to say
Ty Simpson real quick. Just he threw the ball a ton over at Alabama, and you want guys that have already thrown the ball quite a few times. And last season, he stepped into the starting gig and just really let it fly and had a productive season. So I think he's fine in a 1 QB to take at the end of the 2nd.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. And like I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Mike, where, that Alabama pedigree, that thought process is still there, but this is a Kalen DeBoer team. So this is completely different. You're not going to trust these guys quite as much, but I think Ty Simpson's, could be like a Brock Purdy type, right? Where he ends up starting and he's good enough where, yeah, you can plug him into an offense. He's going to succeed no matter what. Nobody's calling Brock Purdy exciting, right?
Yeah, that's a great comp. And I think the difference is that you're going to see Ty Simpson go in the 1st round of the NFL draft, and Purdy went in the very last pick of the NFL draft. So it's nice when you can get a Brock Purdy there and have no expectations. We'll see how Simpson's able to handle the expectations. But going back to playing in Alabama, you're playing in intense environments, whether or not you have Nick Saban or whoever. All of those stadiums are some of the kind of most fierce environments in college football. Yeah. So at least he's been through some, been into these big stages where if you've gone to some of those stadiums for college football, that's every bit as intense as an NFL game.
Yep.
You don't have I guess they do have millions of dollars on the line now. Back in our day, they didn't, but now they do. So really not much change, So just the talent level, we'll see if he can hang in that higher crop of talent.
I think he can. As long, again, like I said, as long as he gets to sit, it's That is my big thing here. All right, folks. Well, I want to thank everyone who drafted with us first. It was a pleasure having you. We will be drafting again next week. We're not sure what yet, but as soon as we know, we'll get it out to all y'all on social media so you can join us again for another Mock Draft Monday. While we're here, though, just want a quick reminder, news.optimusfantasy.com on Blue Sky. Make sure you are following along for the latest news, especially as the draft approaches. And speaking of the draft approaching, make sure you check out our Discord server. The link is in the show description. We're going to be live posting every single pick of the draft. You can follow just your team. Tag your team, guys. If you don't want to know every pick, us sickos, we do want to know every pick. And if you've got questions about them, hit us up and we'll talk you through it. Hate a pick your team made. Maybe we can make you feel better about it, or you can cry on our shoulder because there's nothing we can do to help you. You never know, but you're not going to know until you head on over to our Discord server. And again, like I said, that link is in the show description. For everyone who has listened, watched so far this offseason, I just want to say thank you. We appreciate it. And to show that appreciation, head on over to tools.optimusfantasy.com. It's a lot more than tools, guys. We have got just an absolute ton of data. We have combine data, all of the rookie prospect data. We have rankings, we have analyzer tools, and we have a League Hub manager so you can see a snapshot of all your teams and get some help winning your leagues this offseason. Use the promo code Mock Monday to get your first 7 days free on any tier. Again, the code is Mock Draft Monday. All right, guys, we're going to get you out of here. For Cam White and Mike Vadala, I am Nate Polvogt. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Mock Draft Monday. Adios.